The Eurofighter Typhoon, the $45 billion jet that took 20 years to finish. Let's say you and 3 friends try to build a Lego fighter jet. You each have your own box of pieces, different instructions, and all of you want the final model to look like something slightly different. Now imagine you're doing this with real jet parts, across 4 different countries, with 4 different defense ministries, parliaments, and manufacturers. Welcome to the story of the Eurofighter Typhoon. A fighter jet that cost over $45 billion, took nearly 2 decades to complete, and became a masterclass in how international cooperation can sometimes be a diplomatic victory and a logistical nightmare. This is the Eurofighter Typhoon, a cutting-edge aircraft born from Cold War urgency, but raised in the bureaucratic twilight of post-Soviet uncertainty. A jet that was meant to defend Europe, but was almost canceled by it. It's fast, it's deadly, it's versatile, and it almost never made it out of the planning room. Let's rewind the clock. In the early 1980s, NATO countries were facing a serious question. What comes after the F-4 Phantoms, Tornadoes, and Jaguars? Europe needed a new multi-role combat aircraft, something advanced enough to go toe-to-toe with anything the Warsaw Pact could field, and critically, something that could be built domestically to reduce reliance on US exports. But instead of going it alone, several countries tried something novel. They joined forces. Britain, Germany, Italy, and Spain came together with a single goal: design and build the next-generation European fighter jet. A move that made strategic sense. Pool your resources, share development costs, coordinate logistics, and hopefully create a jet that could outclass any Soviet design. That was the theory. The reality was far more complex. From day one, each country had its own vision. Germany wanted a heavy interceptor. Britain wanted a nimble dogfighter. Italy and Spain needed something multi-role. Reconciling those priorities became a negotiation that lasted not months, but years. Even the name was a diplomatic compromise. The initial prototype was called the EAP, Experimental Aircraft Program. Eventually, the name Eurofighter Typhoon was agreed upon, though each participating nation continued to give the jet its own designation. Germany called it the EF-2000. Britain and Italy preferred Eurofighter, and Spain just called it their best hope. But naming was the easy part. Building the thing? That's where it got tricky. The workload was divided up meticulously. The fuselage would be built in Germany. The wings came from Britain. The rear fuselage section from Italy. Final assembly was split across the countries. This was supposed to ensure equal industrial benefit for each nation, but it also meant that no single country could build a full Typhoon independently. The result was a Frankenstein manufacturing process that made coordination a constant challenge. If one part of the supply chain was delayed, everything else ground to a halt. And then the politics kicked in. The Berlin Wall fell. The Soviet Union collapsed. Suddenly, the threat environment that had justified the Typhoon's development looked very different. Defense budgets were slashed. Priorities shifted from Cold War preparation to peacekeeping missions and counterterrorism. Germany, newly reunified and facing massive domestic spending needs, considered pulling out entirely. Britain was determined to keep the program alive, but didn't want to shoulder the entire cost. Negotiations turned into standoffs. Delivery schedules slipped. Cost estimates ballooned. Originally estimated at $20 billion, the program's cost more than doubled. Final price tag? Over $45 billion. And that's just development. Per unit costs came in at around $120 million per jet, depending on the variant and customer. It wasn't until 2003, nearly 20 years after the initial discussions, that the Eurofighter Typhoon finally encountered operational service. To put that into perspective, when the Eurofighter program began, the Soviet Union still existed. By the time the first squadrons were fully combat ready, NATO was fighting in Afghanistan, and the F-22 Raptor had already taken to the skies. So was it worth the wait? Despite the drama, the Typhoon turned out to be an impressive piece of engineering. It's fast, capable of speeds over Mach 2. It's agile. Thanks to its Delta canner design and fly-by-wire controls, it can carry a versatile loadout of weapons, from air-to-air missiles to precision-guided bombs. And most importantly, it has matured into a legitimate frontline fighter. Typhoons have seen combat over Libya, Syria, and Iraq. They've patrolled Baltic airspace in NATO missions. They've scrambled to intercept Russian aircraft near European airspace. The aircraft's performance has won praise from pilots who describe it as a true air superiority fighter, with growing multi-role capabilities. But operational success doesn't erase 2 decades of delays. Critics point out that by the time it was ready, the Typhoon faced stiff competition, not just from Americans' jets like the F-15 and F-16, but also the stealthy F-35. And the export market had changed. Nations were increasingly looking for cheaper off-the-shelf solutions. Even within Europe, not all NATO partners opted for the Typhoon. Some, like Norway and the Netherlands, chose the F-35 instead. Others looked eastward to Rafales or even Sukhois. The delays and cost overruns didn't just hurt the program's image, they hurt its sales pitch. Here's where the numbers really tell the story. Initially, the partner nations planned to procure over 750 Typhoons. That number was later slashed to just over 470. Export orders helped soften the blow, but overall production never reached the levels envisioned in the 1980s. Meanwhile, the F-35, originally derided as a bloated, over-budget experiment, managed to build political momentum through sheer industrial scale. Over 1,000 F-35s have been delivered. It has active orders from more than 17 nations, including several NATO allies who were once considered potential Typhoon customers. The real stinger? Some Typhoon partner nations like the UK and Italy now operate both aircraft. The Typhoon covers air superiority roles, while the F-35 takes on multi-role missions and stealth operations. It's an uneasy coexistence that underscores how, even within its core customers, the Typhoon was never seen as the whole answer. And let's talk stealth. The Typhoon is not a stealth jet. It has a reduced radar cross-section, yes, but compared to the F-35 or F-22, it's a flying disco ball. In modern air defense environments bristling with radar and anti-air systems, stealth matters. That's another reason why the F-35 edged it out in new procurement deals. And while we're here, one more twist. The French originally joined the Eurofighter program, but pulled out in 1985 to pursue their own design, the Dassault Rafale. The Rafale was ready before the Typhoon, entered combat earlier, and today competes for the same export contracts. It has found success in countries like Egypt, India, and Greece. In many ways, France's decision to go solo turned out to be the more pragmatic choice. Yet the Typhoon isn't dead. The jet is undergoing a series of upgrades meant to keep it viable into the 2040s. AESA radar systems, advanced targeting pods, new electronic warfare suites, and expanded weapons compatibility are all part of the roadmap. The European defense industry is determined to extract long-term value from this enormous investment. Moreover, there's growing interest in using the Typhoon as a lead-in platform for 6th-generation aircraft. The UK's Tempest project and the broader FCAS program in mainland Europe are both expected to incorporate lessons, and possibly even components, developed for the Typhoon. In short, the Typhoon may not have won the race, but it's still very much on the track. So what have we learned from the Typhoon saga? First, international cooperation in defense can work, but it's not easy. The Eurofighter Typhoon is both a symbol of European unity and a warning about the price of political compromise. When every nation wants a piece of the pie, the kitchen gets crowded, the meal gets delayed, and the budget explodes. Second, building for the future means anticipating not just enemy threats but political ones. The Typhoon was built to fight Soviet MiGs, but was delivered to a world fighting insurgents with drones. Its role had to adapt, and so did its design philosophy. Agility in the air matters, but agility in procurement matters just as much. Finally, there's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes, even the best jets arrive late to the party. The Typhoon is powerful, it's respected, but it's also a reminder that in military procurement, timing is everything. Had the Typhoon entered service in the early 1900s as planned, it might have become the dominant NATO fighter. Instead, it became a second act, still valuable, still capable, but always playing catch-up. Yet despite all that, it's still flying, still intercepting, still dropping bombs, still proving that, for all its flaws, the Eurofighter Typhoon is more than just a bureaucratic blunder. It's a symbol of resilience. A jet that survived politics, weathered criticism, and now finds itself back in the conversation as Europe rethinks its defense posture in the face of renewed threats. So here's to the $45 billion jet that took 20 years to finish. Slow out the gate, but still in the fight. And that's a wrap on today's deep dive into the red tape files. Drop a comment below. What military tech disaster should we unravel next? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a breakdown. See you next time, where we'll take another flight into the turbulent skies of defense development.